fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scallion, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. Hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and I resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
What people do eat no money, what people at you, it no at you. COVID money, miss away in the your little rat you. Use the youth, the money, waste no must a man to statue. Say me like a catch you, but bigger than a figure you. Take the spit of money, God and say that is not you. One day the man above him up, him a got a bet. But it in the kitchen, some a fly well like a patu. The singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me.
300% raise.
It burn me.
Garbage pile of the day.
It burn me.
Give the teacher them raise.
It burn me.
I see corruption please.
It burn me.
Mash down the people them house.
It burn me.
Every day appear arms out.
It burn me.
Appear money them a thief.
It burn me.
And them a sell out with each.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scallion, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and I resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
Come me say big up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The urgent the promises, none of them not deliver. Cut up the youth, them rap and they down in our fever. Member bowl only and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like thief when them sell.
It burn me.
Or they treat the market man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the cat man.
It burn me.
Or they treat the peanut man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the dirt man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the sun man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat policeman.
It burn me.
Or them a treat soldier man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat everyone.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scallion, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't.
Stevie dim day. We in Global TV says certain kind of friend we no keep. And some informer friend we love like. We in Global, bona fake friend and bona thief. We in Global, we not promote them, we not support them. Look at them on the cheek, come here represent for. We in Global TV, check it.
If you want to know that crime is a black and white situation and the rich and poor situation in Jamaica, just ask Gene and Panton and the SSL boss. Good evening. We are back in our West Midlands studios. Good evening to those on TikTok, the X, YouTube, and Facebook. Thank you very much for joining us. First of all, I must warn you, I'm not going to be very long because I'm terribly unwell. I'm coughing and spluttering a lot. On the important side, I must say today, I met a great person, one who you all know, aware of, and love very much. Is no other than our own Human Rights Counsel, Isaac Buchanan. I had the privilege today of meeting Counsel Buchanan, and that is something I will cherish. So for those of you who have not heard or known about his YouTube channel, it's called Context Matters. So please go over and give him your support. His show is, I don't remember if it's every day, but I know it's 10 o'clock UK time, I think, 4 or 5 Jamaica time. You know you can't quote me on numbers, but it was a big thing for me meeting Isaac today. It's memory I will go on in my life with. Of course, crime is rich and poor, black and white situation. Just ask Mark Golden why him distant himself from black ISAT when I come from them uptown clique. I hope you're all hearing me. Let me check the comments for once. Him not come from them uptown clique and all of those things. So therefore, Mark Golden could easily, on the basis of free speech, distance himself from Isaac Buchanan. But Mr. Silvera appears to be a descendant of the generation of Caucasian, and we know how colorism / racism mixed with classism works in our Jamaica. So the SSL boss charges are dropped against the SSL boss. Jean Panton is still arrested, awaiting trial. Why is it Jean Panton could not be on bail pending trial? What risk is Jean Panton to the public? What risk does Jean Panton pose to the public? If Jean Panton pose a flight risk, can you not confiscate her passport, give her daily or weekly reporting at a police station? Jean Panton, in one of her first appearances in court, said she was grab bagging under instructions from higher up. Sorry, pardon me, I'm coming down with whatever the bug is, and it's really messing me up. So, of course, justice in Jamaica is a black and white, rich and poor situation, because we see how it always play out, and we see how it is playing out in the Mrs. Silvera issue. But I want to go back to ripe mango for a bit. What is your relation with Mr. Silvera? Is Mr. Silvera a friend of yours? Is it politically friendly? Is there any untoward friendliness? Sorry. Is there any untoward friendliness with Ripe Mango and anyone in the People's National Party, particularly Mr. Silvera? Because you remember she said she was on the scene within hours, and she was given whatever information she thinks she need to inform us or to distract us. Were you on the scene? And if you were on the scene, have you been spoken to by the police? If you were not on the scene, was this a narrative given to you by your friend and political cliques to make sure to throw out in public so when the truth comes, it is distorted? Does the Silvera investigation not show another rich and poor class element situation? Mr. Silvera has been questioned twice by the police. Mr. Silvera has been questioned twice by the police. My question to Fitzbailey, Mr. Silvera's arrest, has he been questioned under caution? Has he been read his Miranda rights? His right to silence? Has he been read such right? Because let me tell you why. We need Fitzbailey to tell us if Mr. Silvera is questioned as a person of interest, if he's questioned as a suspect, or if he's been questioned as a witness. It's important for us to know because they all make difference. Say, for example, he's been questioned as a witness. Then there would be no need to read him his right to silence. If he's been questioned as a suspect, that right ought to be stated to him before going into any questions. What if his friends just sit down and have a casual questioning with him without his right to silence being informed? Then they can't use that information against him in court. We have to be aware of all sorts of possible stitch-up that could happen to throw this case out of the water, and then they come back to tell us, oh, sorry, we do not have enough evidence to convict or to go to court. Remember, the charges against the SSL boss was dropped. And when you drop charges, it means there's not enough evidence for you to secure a conviction, or it is not within the public's interest to carry such prosecution forward. The public has nothing to gain from it. So why just waste public money going after something you're not going to get anything out of? It is important to know the 2 times Mr. Silvera has been questioned, if he's been questioned as a witness, if he's been questioned as a suspect, or if he's been questioned as a person of interest. The line of questioning that the police would take with Mr. Silvera, depending on why they're questioning him, could make a lot of difference. The rich and poor, black and white, uptown, downtown justice system. Fitzbailey said there is no corruption. Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of crime, Fitzbailey, said there has been no evidence of corruption in the conduct of policemen who was first responder to the house where Melissa Silvera was found dead on November 10. Me don't need to read go further on this. So. There's no evidence of police corruption. There is no evidence, Fitzbailey, of police corruption. Okay, you say there's no evidence of police corruption. Who started the cover-up? Because there's a cover-up in front of us. Who started the cover-up? If not the police, who was one of the initial first responders, who started the corruption? Is that the protocol for the JCF when someone dies suddenly at home, that a superintendent of a police station is called, or especially for those of you who are living in the corporate area, you would call the police? Is there nothing in the officer's behavior that visited the scene on the morning? Does anything cause a concern to Fitzbailey? Is Fitzbailey concerned that the actions of the police on that morning have missed vital information and evidence that was circulated all around the Silvera's residence on that morning? What was the panic? What was the mood? What was the feel? Could the police not read into the mood or the behavior of the people on the ground? Did nothing draw the police suspicion? Is the police a friendly person of Mr. Silvera? Why the police just trot along on whatever information Mr. Silvera would have given them? Ripe Mango still need to explain what time did Mark Golden got there. Not Mark Golden, sorry Mark Golden. What time Mr. Silvera got to the house, or what's her knowledge of where Mr. Silvera was on that night? She said Mr. Silvera wasn't at home initially. She said Mr. Silvera wasn't at home initially. But Mr. Silvera first told us that his wife died in her sleep next to him. That was the information he also gave to Bobby Montague. Bobby Montague, who is said to be a very close friend of Mr. Silvera. It is also said that Bobby Montague is the politician and friend that retained the services of Peter Champagne for Julian Silvera. Is the JLP and the People's National Party headlocked into a cover-up of a crime within their political circle, within their uptown circle, within their upper class circle? Is the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party is colluding with the cover-up of the crime of the killing of Mrs. Silvera? Why are they so silent? We know them always silent pan them thing, but you see, because we think say, well then, as somebody in a them uptown clique, because all of you were crazy to run out and just ram in these condolences down our throat. But the minute things turn, all of you have gone into silence. Mark Golden is yet, and the People's National Party is yet to distance themselves from Mr. Silvera. The same Mr. Silvera we've seen holding Brawley over Mark Golden and all that jazz. The same Mr. Silvera that Mark Golden came out on the 10th and gave his condolences to. Does that condolences still stand to an alleged murderer, Mr. Golden? It is important for us to know, a couple months away from a local election, where the People's National Party is asking us to vote for them, and not for the crooks of the Jamaica Labour Party. Is Mark Golden seriously asking us to give our political support to the enablers and the protectors of murder? Is that what Mark Golden is asking us? To give our votes and our political support to a party that is enabling and protecting crime? Keep your eyes on the lies. Fitzbailey said none of his team who went there first, didn't spot anything. There's no corruption. Because if there's no corruption, it means they didn't spot anything. Was a wool pulled over the police eyes by Mr. Silvera? Did the police find it suspicious Mr. Silvera calling a direct person rather than the emergency services of the corporate area? Why didn't Mr. Silvera call a doctor to check on his wife and to see if she was in a coma or not? Or is it because Mr. Silvera knew his wife is already dead, his wife's been murdered? Then there would be no reason for Mr. Silvera to call a doctor. All he needs is somebody to help him to collude and cover up the crime. Which the police, the undertaker, and anybody who has anything to do with Mrs. Silvera's body before the pathologist, it is our opinion that these people are involved in the cover-up of a crime. Given what we know now, and what Ripe Mango is telling us, we can draw certain inference. There was a mood on the ground in the morning. There was a panic in news. News was sent around because at least 30 people got to the scene. Ripe Mango, said she was there within hours. She said initially the husband wasn't at home. Explain what you mean by that. Did you heard that he was not at home initially? Or when you got there, Mr. Silvera was not there, so you actually saw when Mr. Silvera turned up? Was it at that point Mr. Silvera knew that his wife was dead? Did you see him? What was his mood? You seem very friendly to him. You seem very friendly with Mr. Silvera. You go on to even take the Dr. Nesbitt approach by pronouncing her death aneurysm. We were told that you all thought she had an aneurysm because there was blood coming through her nose. A lot of we in Jamaica commonly know say bleeding a nose is a big thing for a lot of us Jamaicans. Where we nose we just broke loose, bleed so. Does it mean that we're suffering from an aneurysm? So ripe mango must tell us what time you get there, what was the mood there, is it the case that Mr. Silvera arrived after you got there? If it is so, what was Mr. Silvera's mood? Was that when Mr. Silvera found out that his wife was dead? And I'm using the word dead in context to the 11th of December. Was that the first time Mr. Silvera would have found out that his wife is dead? Or Mr. Silvera was already fully aware? You can't just come out in public and throw out information that you think will protect Mr. Silvera, but not wanting to give clarity when things turn rather sour or upside down. Why were so much of you there? Did you got into the house? How did you know she was bleeding through the nose? How did you know it was not a lot of blood? Were you there, or were you given the narrative to run to protect a friend? People, I'm sorry about the coughing, but I don't know how it goes. Were you Ripe Mango there, or were you given a narrative as a People's National Party political blogger to go out there? If I'm not lying, you said Miss Silvera was a friend or something of the Rotherons? If that is so, Mrs. Kamala Forbes, as another woman, as an activist, shouldn't you be seeking for justice for Mrs. Silvera? Shouldn't you be seeking for justice for the Silvera's children? Shouldn't we be seeking open justice for the crime that was committed against Mrs. Silvera? Shouldn't we be seeking exposure and justice to those who have assisted Mr. Silvera, not only in the concealment of the crime, but in a litany of cover-up following Mr. Silvera's concealment? Did Mr. Silvera shot his wife in her genitalia? Did Mr. Silvera shot his wife in her genitalia? And if so, what would be Mr. Silvera's motive? What would be Mr. Silvera's motive for shooting his wife in her private area? Is Mr. Silvera being questioned under caution? Has Mr. Silvera been arrested or detained prior to these questioning? Or was Mr. Silvera asked to attend the police station and have a sit down with his police friends? This is one of the greatest crime and cover-up of our time. Why is it? It involves all of those who we want to tackle the issue of crime in our country. It involved politicians. It involved lawmakers. It involves law enforcers. It involves those who we entrust the protection of our state and our person and property to. But the reason why these crimes can continuously go on unnoticed and unpunished is because law enforcement have a free ride in Jamaica. They don't get pushed back on. Nobody demonstrate against them. The country just sit down and accept whatever happened. By the looks of the way the Silvera situation is going, it would be difficult unless on circumstantial evidence to get a conviction against Mr. Silvera. We've learned that the room has gone under significant renovation since the death of Mrs. Silvera. That would have destroyed tantamount of evidence. In the criminal justice system, the burden of proof is on Paula Llewellyn. And Paula Llewellyn must prove beyond reasonable doubt that Mr. Silvera murdered his wife. If Mr. Silvera used an illegal firearm and that firearm has been disposed of, whoopsie-daisy, evidence gone. If Mr. Silvera used his licensed firearm, but before his firearm was seized by the police, he's changed the clip on his firearm, then it would also remove the trace to the bullet that is found in Mrs. Silvera. If the room, the marital bedroom, as it is said, has gone under significant renovation, bed move out, new bed in, painting, flooring. If that happens, and that was the room that Mrs. Silvera was murdered in, a whole thread load of evidence has also gone missing. How do we, in a court of law, convict Mr. Silvera beyond all reasonable doubt that he was the one who shot his wife on the 10th of November? You see the difficult territory we are in with 5 weeks, 6 weeks of cover-up. 5-6 weeks of cover-up and perversing the course of justice. 5 weeks of cover-up and perversing the course of justice. Now, do you all understand that even if we arrest and charge Mr. Silvera, it's a highly likelihood that a jury will not convict Mr. Silvera because they are not sure if Mr. Silvera did the crime. There isn't enough evidence pointing in the direction that this crime was done by Julian Silvera. Do you see the situation that we can fall into in a corrupt justice system? it is important that we continue to ask these questions. It is important that we continue to ask these questions because we know justice in our country is a rich and poor thing and a black and white thing. And they are protecting one of their uptown friends from being scrutinized, even though the wife is of the same European descendant and background, partly. But because they have no love or respect for women, they are willing to stand with Mr. Silvera, the alleged murderer. They are willing to stand with Mr. Silvera, the alleged murderer, rather than standing on the side of justice. Remember, Mark Golden stood on the side of free speech, on the side against free speech. But this week, we've seen Mark Golden stand on the side of crime, murder, and violence against women and children in our society. That is the politician who is asking us to be our future prime minister and leader of our country, is a supporter and enabler to a potential murderer. So we must continue to ask these questions. Don't let them get away with this. A lot of what they're doing behind the scenes, this is why Fitzgerald come tell me, oh, there was no police corruption. Because we are expecting them soon at some point to swing this thing around on Mrs. Silvera. Oh, we found new evidence. Mrs. Silvera was in an extramarital affair, and Mrs. Silvera may have brought someone into the house while her husband was not there. We know that's one of the possible arguments that you'll be coming with to attack Mrs. Silvera's reputation and blame her death on her. It is not going to work. We are all wide awake and we are watching. We are wide awake and we are watching. So Mr. Silvera need to tell us if he really shot his wife in her vagina or in her genitalia for the purpose of children being here. The public wants to know what's your motive. And all the bloggers in the blogging community, you must give due to this story. The reason why? Remember, this is uptown. And if they can be behaving like this uptown, God help us downtown. Because if Mr. Silvera was from Tivoli or Arnett Gardens, Mr. Silvera wouldn't have gone to the police twice for questioning. Mr. Silvera's house door would have been kicked in, his house ransacked, everything turned upside down, and Mr. Silvera would have been in police custody at least since we got the postmortem report. However, we know say if I did downtown, Mr. Silvera we wouldn't have heard anything because we would have known from day one, say, it's a murder that took place because that's downtown. That is what is expected of downtown. What are you all protecting? You lot uptown. What are you all protecting? to the point where you can turn against one of your very own who has been murdered by her husband, who has been allegedly murdered by her husband. Because until we're of the knowledge that somebody else broke into that residence, or Mrs. Silvera, with consent, brought someone into that residence who may have turned around and taken her life, it is important to know the line of inquiry that Fitz-Bailey is pursuing, especially when speaking to Mr. Silvera. Fitz-Bailey and his team still have not named Mr. Silvera as a suspect. Do you all not find it strange? Even without the evidence pointing to Mr. Silvera, in a case like this, the partner, the husband, and family member would be flogged as the first group of suspects, or close friends and associates would be first flogged. But note, Mr. Silvera has been given protection by political vloggers such as Ripe Mango, Mount Golden, Bobby Montague, and others. So Mr. Silvera is enjoying a rounded support at the moment. Politicians on both sides is supporting Mr. Silvera. It is said that his attained attorney was paid for by Bobby Montague. So him have grace and favor on both sides, as well as a vlogger who may be lying through her teeth to protect Mr. Silvera. But I want to thank you all very much for being here tonight. I really have to go now. My coughing. My coughing is becoming more persistent, so I need to go off now. I want to thank all of you for being here. Those on the X, those on TikTok, those on Facebook, and those on YouTube. Thank you very much for being here. And I will definitely see you tomorrow. I will do some hard work on my coughing. Debbie, seems as if I'm coming down with the winter bug. But I'm going to just chuck a lot of onions at it and go get some sleep. But anyway, guys, thank you very much. Thanks to all my moderators for keeping the comment steady and on the go. We appreciate your support, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. This was The People's Point of View, and of course, it is your station, Global TV. Good night.